No Nose Knows. Written by Irrespective. Chapter 14. State of Being. Part 2.
Did he really?
Saucy snickered furiously.
Both of them did,
Henry replied.
for as yellow as he is, he blushed like a lit match. See?
Cadence said smugly.
Now, don't do that again for a little bit. Just throw it at him every now and then. Flirting like that will get things going for you. Thanks, Cadence.
Saucy pulled her niece into a quick hug.
Lulu, thank you as well.
Luna smiled and nodded.
It was my pleasure to assist, sister. I believe I shall leave you, though, and retire for the day. I'll see you tonight, then.
Saucy replied with a quick hug, and she watched her sister retreat for a moment before turning to Cadence again.
Well, shall we have lunch? What are they serving today? I asked for daffodil salads. I hope Bean will actually be able to eat this one. Why wouldn't he? It appears my chefs have been using too much salt,
Sister replied as they walked towards the kitchen.
With his background, he notices nuances like that and he has a hard time eating. So he's a picky eater. No, he's not,
She defended.
he just has a certain threshold for sodium. Picky.
Cadence repeated.
Dear niece, I am going to have him cook something for you to prove my point. He made a minestrone soup a few nights ago and that was the most flavorful soup I have ever had.
Are you talking about me?
Bean!
Cecilia said warmly.
As a matter of fact, we were. How long have you been there?
I just came around the corner and saw you two, so only a couple of seconds. All I got was the minestrone the other night.
Yes, I was just telling Cadence about that. Might it be possible to request another demonstration of your cooking prowess? You can make anything you like, soup or no soup.
You want me to cook something for you two? He repeated.
I'm sure Shiny would like to eat too.
Cadence replied. Bean had a sneaky smile on his smug face now. Whatever I want to make?
Yes.
Sustia answered. She then leaned down to his ear.
And if you cook something extra delicious, I will personally see to it that you receive a fair reward.
She then pulled back and smiled lovingly at his furious blushing.
Chef Sugarbeet. Oh, Princess.
Sugarbeet bowed.
Good afternoon. What can I do for you? There's been a change in plans for lunch today.
Sustia replied.
Prince Bean is going to make a lunch for myself, Cadence, and Prince Armor. I need you to show him where things are and give him whatever he needs. Really?
Big Bean could not help but to catch the surreptitious glance the chef made at a nearby fire extinguisher, but he tried to ignore it.
Is that a problem? Oh, no problem.
The ruddy mare replied.
I'm more than happy to let Prince Bean cook. I just didn't know he could. Very well. Bean, I'm eager to see what you will come up with.
I'll do my best, he replied. Celestia then left him, and he glanced around. Pots were clanking and bubbling, plates were being tossed around like hot potatoes, knives were flying, ponies were shouting to each other in a sort of language that used foodstuffs as profanities, and all about was the steam and the smells of a truly efficient kitchen. Baked Bean was well pleased. However, he knew that another body would be really inconvenient right now. While he had a good idea of what to try, he didn't want to compound things by being in the way. Chef, this is obviously a bad time for me to be back here. Do you just have an out-of-the-way corner for me? Or perhaps a side kitchen somewhere?
Oh, it's not a problem, Your Highness. I can get you whatever you need and get you in wherever you want. Just tell me what you need done.
All right. I need tofu, zucchini, and couscous to start. Bean then simply marched over to what looked like an unused stovetop. If he had stolen it from some pony, so be it. It only took a moment for Sugarbeet to bring the requested items, but Bean frowned deeply when she deposited a large salt shaker as well. What is that?
Salt?
Did I ask for salt? He asked with a great deal of self-restraint.
No, but I know you're going to need it.
And how exactly do you know that? Sugarbeet obviously realized the thin ice she was on, and she took an extra step back.
Because Celestia wants extra salt.
She does? Bean asked, his annoyance flipping to confusion quickly. Why does she want extra salt?
I don't know. All I know is that she has asked for extra salt in her meals.
When was this? When did she say that? Bean asked.
2 years ago, when she hired me as head chef, she had sent back a steamed broccoli I had made with the instructions to add salt to it to any other meal I made for her.
Did she tell you that personally, or was it the waiter at the time who told you that?
Well,
She grew embarrassed.
it was the waiter.
And was she particular about every meal or just that particular dish?
Well...
Bean smiled in a kindly way. I'll tell you what, she can't fire me, so let's make this together, and we'll see what she says. If she likes it, then you know to cut back on the salt.
I hope she does. I have really hated having to add it every time. It really limits what you can make.
Bean chuckled. That it would. Grab some knives, and we'll get back to work on the tofu.
Wait. How could his parents not believe it was you?
Cadence asked incredulously.
I had no guards or staffers with me, so that was part of it. The other part is just that they simply didn't believe Bean. They're both so convinced that Bean's true calling is with them, cooking. So if anything is presented that runs counter to that, then they find ways to explain it away. I'm really not surprised or offended by it. Most ponies are the same way. Why didn't you just move the moon around a bit or bring the sun up for just a quick second? I promised Lulu that when she returned, I would only touch the moon in an emergency or with her permission. It is rightfully hers, and I wish to show the proper respect to my sister and the princess of the night. As for the sun, well, I could have done as you say, but for one thing, the Astrological Society would not have a collective conniption, not to mention the panic attack it would have given to Twilight and any other pony awake at that time. However, the more important reason is...
The door to the dining room opened, and both princesses watched Chef Sugarbeet enter with 3 domed trays on a trolley. 2 of them were then placed on the table before them, and Celestia smiled up as a delectable aroma drifted up to her nose.
Where's Baked Bean?
Cadence asked.
He sends his regards, and says it's bad luck for chefs to eat with his patrons.
Celestia offered a diplomatic smile.
Will you please go tell my husband, and I want you to use these exact words, and that if he doesn't get his sorry rump in here, I will plant him right back in the sunflower patch where I found him. Sure, I'll go tell him. Whatever he made smells wonderful,
Cadence remarked.
I bet I'm going to eat my words along with this meal.
Celestia's smile flipped over to genuine.
Maybe I can talk him into a rhubarb pie. I always did like those. I never had one. Are they any good? I think they would be an acquired taste. Maybe with enough sugar you could tolerate it.
Plant me in the sunflowers, huh? Bean quipped as he entered the room.
Yes,
Celestia said firmly.
I do expect you to spend your meal times with me, cook or no.
In fairness, Chef Sugarbeet helped quite a bit. She gets at least equal billing for this meal.
What did you make?
Bean smiled smugly and lifted the domes off the trays. A whoosh of steam erupted as he did so, and the 2 princesses' mouths began to water. Stuffed zucchini surprise. I'm sure you'll enjoy. Please, please. He motioned to the silverware. Dig in.
Has anyone seen my husband?
Cadence suddenly asked as she glanced around the room. He's out in the hallway discussing puckball with one of your guards.
Oh, for pity's sake. Shining Armor, get in here.
I didn't know you knew how to use the royal voice, Bean remarked while rubbing the inside of one ear with his hoof.
All wives know how to use it instinctively.
Cadence took a bite.
And this is really, really good.
You bellowed, my lady? Shining joked as he entered.
Quit talking buckball for 5 minutes and come eat.
Yes, dear.
Where is your plate?
Saucy asked once Bean had delivered Shining's plate to him. You said to feed Cadence, yourself, and Shining, he replied smugly. You didn't say anything about me. She gave him a very sour look.
You know full well that I meant you to.
It's still bad luck to eat with your patrons. Besides, I sampled enough while I was preparing the meal to tide me over. Celestia stuck her tongue out at him.
Well, I expect you to eat with me next time. Bad luck or no bad luck.
I'll bear that in mind. Now, if you excuse me, I promised Chef Beat that I would give her recipe for the meal you're enjoying.
Oh, no you don't. You're going to sit down and at least make a polite conversation. You can give her the recipe later.
Well, if you insist. Any chance I can learn how to use the royal voice? I am a royal, after all.
It's all in the diaphragm.
Cadence began to explain. Is it ever? Shining added with an exasperation. Saucy had found that over the years that day court typically tended to be slow on Tuesdays, given that it's a workday. However, today was slower than normal, since Wisteria was dealing with any pony making inquiries into Celestia and Bean's marriage, and thus the majority of the ponies who were coming to the palace. She was glad that Cadence was there to chat with during the lulls in between petitioners, and they had been able to come up with some rather fun ideas for her wedding party in those times. They had also agreed that Shiny and Cadence should go with Bean to Ponyville, as Shiny could help Bean navigate the town, while Cadence went over the party ideas with Pinkie Pie. Cecily had sent a letter asking Twilight if Thursday would be too busy to visit, but she had not received a reply. Bean had disappeared into the kitchen somewhere, and Celestia surmised that he had probably gotten engaged in a cooking-related discussion with the staff there. Shining was, well, missing, but Cadence was convinced he was doing something very productive to move the affairs of the Crystal Empire forward. Or the Buckball part of the Empire, at least. It was thus that Celestia found herself near the end of day court, with perhaps half an hour remaining. She and Cadence were chatting about some other flirtatious moves to try on Bean, but a guard entered and bowed to the throne with a cough.
Yes? What is it, Sergeant?
2 ponies are seeking an audience with you, Your Highness, but they are declining to give their names. All they will say is that they are urgent to speak with Prince Bean.
What do they look like?
One is a mare of yellow and black mane. The other is a stallion of grey with a red mane. They are perhaps in their late 40s.
Sister smiled a bit. Go ahead and show them in. I believe I know them. Aunt Sally, who is it?
Cadence asked.
You'll see,
Cecilia mystically replied. It only took a moment for the 2 visitors to be shown in. Like all newcomers to the throne, they were initially overwhelmed with the grandeur of the hall, and the stallion moved his flat cap as he gaped at the singular scene before him.
Garbanzo and Lima, what an honor it is to see you again, and so soon.
2 sets of eyes grew wide, and 2 noses immediately went to the floor in respect.
Oh, great Celestia, please forgive us,
Lima called out.
We have been fools, and we have come to before your greatness to beg for your mercy.
Mercy? Celestia asked as she quickly descended and moved across the hall to them. Her wings then reached out and gently lifted their gazes to meet hers.
You have no need of my mercy, for you have done nothing that requires it. You are innocent before me.
But we have insulted you deeply, Garbanzo cried out as a tear slipped out. We called you a fraud.
No, if I had been in your position, I would not have believed myself either. You have done no wrong to me. However, I believe you have something to say to my husband.
More tears came, and eyes went wide in hopeful horror as Celestia's wing retracted and her horn glowed. She smiled warmly as her magic reached out across the palace, found Bean, and then teleported him to the throne room, but with his nose nearly touching the wall by the main doors. I mean, every pony knows that the moon is made of cheese, he stated, his eyes closed in an effort to look wise. He then opened them and blinked a few times. Sally? Did you just teleport? His sentence stalled out as he looked over his shoulders and beheld the visitors. He then turned, his face a picture of shocked surprise. Mom? He breathlessly asked. Dad? And to his everlasting credit, Big Bean broke out into a dead run towards his parents. Celestia felt tears flowing down her cheeks as the family shared both hugs and tears of reconciliation. She had been worried Bean would not be so forgiving of his parents, and that he would instead drive them away and proclaim the wounds they inflicted were too deep. But she was most pleased to find that was not the case. The Bean family was again as it should be. Whole. She smiled a bit more as Bean motioned for her to come join the hug. She had to drop down to her knees to do so, but the warmth and light she felt as her nose touched his, and as several pairs of arms and hooves locked with hers was so rich and ennobling that she was proud to call herself a Bean. This was a family that was exemplary, and though they would still have issues and troubles in the future, this one moment would forever change the dynamics for all of them, and in all good ways one could think of. The bonds between all of them were now stronger than steel, and that as it should be.
So may I call myself Celestia Bean now?
She asked softly. There was laughter from all, and then Bean spoke through what the others were sharing. Doesn't quite roll off the tongue, but I think we can get used to it. Dinner that evening was one of the most pleasant dinners Celestia had ever had the pleasure of attending. As it turned out, the Garbanzo and Lima had shut down their restaurant completely and had paid for the rest of their employees to travel with them, and so the dining room was now filled with such a wonderful assortment of ponies that it was making for quite a lively and happy scene. She wasn't quite sure how it happened, but Celestia found Lima to her right, Bean next to her, Garbanzo next, and then Sip. Cadence was on her left, then Shining, then Grumps, Shake and Bake, and Luna, who looked amused and a bit perplexed, was at the end. The staff had made Bean stuffed zucchini, and everyone was quiet enjoying the meal, though Cadence had whispered to Celestia that Bean's rendition had been slightly better. There was laughter, there was a small argument when Garbanzo's lifelong support of the Broncos came to light, but mostly there was happiness, friendship, and love. If only all of her state dinners could be this way. It was as the dinner was winding down that Celestia found Lima leaning towards her. She smiled and asked if she was enjoying herself.
Oh, yes, this has been quite enjoyable,
Lima replied.
But I wanted to ask you something, if I may. Please. Why didn't you just prove you were the princess the other night?
She asked, the confusion obvious in her voice.
If you had just raised the sun for a few seconds, we would have both been convinced.
Celestia smiled a bit more.
I suppose I could have, but there was probably a few different things I could have done to convince you. But I am a teacher when I'm not a princess, and that moment provided me an opportunity to teach you something. To trust our son,
Lima said softly.
To trust in your son, to have faith in him,
Celestia kindly added.
He's a wonderful young stallion, and there are so many reasons why I have the feelings that I do for him, but it's hard to accept when your children's plans differ from your own. By letting you suffer through what you did, I believe you have learned not to sell Big Bean short. He can do wonderful things for Equestria, but what is far more important is that he goes for full faith and support. As time goes on and as he assumes more responsibilities, he will need all the support he can get. If I had used my powers to prove who I was, you would not respect and trust your son in the way that you do now. But Garbanzo and I were so worried he'd reject us,
Lima replied.
We spent the whole train ride worrying about what he'd do or what he might say.
It seemed that the panic was a family trait, but Celestia did not believe that it was a bad trait.
Then perhaps this was a test for Bean too.
Celestia put on her best wise look.
Could you offer forgiveness to you, despite your actions? There was a risk he would reject you, as you would say. He would be understandably justified if he did, but now we all know a bit more about his true character, and I believe that, in the end, we have all been elevated by this event.
Lima nodded thoughtfully.
I think you're right. Besides, now you're here, we can go over your new titles.
This made all three beans stop in their tracks, and both father and son looked over the Celestia. Titles? Garbanzo asked.
Of course. I do believe by ancient custom that in the laws of the prince and princess are to be duke and duchess. Am I wrong, sister? I do believe you are right,
Luna replied with a small smile.
Though I believe in these modern times, the titles are more symbolic than anything else. Alas, they are,
Celestia confirmed.
You both will be duke and duchess, but there are no lands or tax revenues that come with it.
That's for the best, Garbanzo replied. I'm happy with just running my restaurant.
Bean, do you plan on taking your parents on that promised tour tomorrow?
Oh, he exclaimed, and he looked to his parents with a broad smile. Of course, I'll take all of you out and show you everything. We'll make a day of it. Could we possibly see the Sunflower Patch while you ambush the princess? Sip asked. We'll make it that the first stop. There we go. I'm still trying to get into the swing of things, but hopefully this was good. I'm also going to be working on another project right after this video, so Hey, maybe 2 videos? I don't know quite yet. That aside, however, I would like to thank my wonderful Patreons. Thank you my tier 1 Patreons Squall, Windfeather, Rainflicker, Starlight Blaze, Dreamless Portal, Thine Tiny Equine, and Stew Hacks. My tier 2 Patreons Chase LeMaster, Sword Brother and Mordred, Solus, Captain BlueShadow, HKH4 aka Texture, and the Animated Ghost. And of course, a large thank you to Silent Titan. I appreciate your guys' support so much and it means a ton to me. That aside, however, this has been Firehearth. Have a wonderful day.